Well, I want to bring in Ibrahim al-Assil tonight. Now, he's a senior fellow at the Middle East Institute, and he joins me tonight from Damascus. And for our viewers' sake, can you just talk about how long you've been away and why, and how it feels to be back before we move on?
Thank you, Becky. It's great to be with you. I left Damascus around 13 years ago, and I wasn't able to come back. I visited areas in Syria up until 2014, 10 years ago, areas that were outside the regime control. I was never able to come back to Damascus or any area under the regime control since 2011. The last few days I was here in Damascus, I was detained and interrogated by the Air Force intelligence, by the regime secret police. And since then, I wasn't able to come back. But of course, a few days ago, I came back, and it's a whole new world for Syrians now. And it is challenging, it is emotional, it is overwhelming, but it's also something new. We're trying to figure it out.
And I want to talk about, your assessment of how that gets figured out and what the future looks like. But before we do that, let's just pause for a moment, because we've got images in today which are harrowing. I want to start with these pictures that we just saw, mass graves. Whatever comes next for Syria, this of course is an example of what Syria and Syrians have been through, not just over the past 13 years, but over the past 5 decades. And whatever emerges from this will obviously be enormously valuable to everybody. But as we look at these images, and you will have seen them, what's going through your mind?
You know, for me, these pictures we're looking at, this is the Assad regime. This is the regime that ruled Syria for over 5 decades. The cells, the prisons, the dungeons, the mass graves, all of that were the tools that Assad controlled Syria, the oppression that wanted to keep Syrians silent and never didn't want to give them an opportunity to participate on how Syria looked like. And this is, the Assad regime is not only a past yet. We're still trying to grapple with reality, and many people are still looking for their beloved ones. They don't have a closure yet. They don't know what happened to them, if they were killed, what happened to their bodies. All of that, that's something that we need to deal with for over years, and they're gonna be very difficult years, Becky.
But in parallel, of course, there is an urgent need to create some sort of stability, some infrastructure, some civil society, leadership, a government. All of this is no small task. The new Syrian leader meeting with British officials in Damascus yesterday, for example, just the latest in a series of meetings that he has had. Here's what the UN Special Envoy said about Syria just in the past few days. Have a listen.
We need to see that this is fixed quickly. We will hopefully see a quick end to sanctions, so that we can see really rallying around building up Syria again. And then, my last point, we need to see, of course, justice and accountability for crimes. And we need to make sure that that goes through a credible justice system.
Agree with his points there?
You know, those are very, very important points. And while it is a very emotional moment for Syrians, and while the Syrian eyes are still full of tears, we need to look at the future, and we need to try to prioritize and see what we can do on all these parallel paths. But what's also very important for Syrians now is how the government will look like, how the new political system will look like. Is there going to be power sharing or not? Who's going to make those decisions? Who's going to work on transitional justice? Transitional justice is not only for the past, it's very important because it also shows us how the future will look like. Are those in power now, the decision makers, will they be held accountable or not? All these are very different priorities, and at the same time we're talking about millions of people who are still in camps and in tents, and they need to go back to their towns. Their towns are destroyed. We need to rebuild them. Those priorities are overwhelming. Syrians do need help, but also Syrians are builders. Syrians are, they know that only them can lead this process and can rebuild their country. And I also see lots of hope going around. It's a very difficult moment, but many people still believe that the future should and can be better.
Yeah, and I know how important it is to you that Syria's civil society, which just was destroyed under the Assad regime, particularly over the last decade or so, is built back up and plays a significant role in Syria's future. That is important to you and important to so many Syrians, particularly those who've been away and are back in and dedicating themselves now to a better future. Ibrahim, it's good to have you. I hope we stay in touch over the weeks and months to come. It's good to see you there. I know how important it is for you to be in Damascus, and we really very much appreciate your time today. Thank you.